And once again, it's Jay Reel at Texas Frightmare Weekend 2009, and it's Sunday, the last day of the event, and I'm here with Mr. William Forsythe. Of course, horror fans know him as Sheriff Wydell in The Devil's Rejects, a man who goes to extremes to see that the Firefly clan comes to a bitter end. At least he makes the attempt, and goes to his own heart of darkness to see that this happens.
Well, you don't even need me here for this.
Long introduction. But what I wanted to talk to you about is you often play these characters that are over the top or very extreme in their or sometimes violent. And do you find that a challenge, roles like that? And how do you?
When it comes to parts, I mean, what I look for is something that really stands out, something that, something to really get around. In the case of Wydell, I mean, this guy has every reason in the world. He has complete vengeance on his mind, and he's also, he's a, like you said, I mean, he's a larger-than-life character. I wouldn't say over the top. I mean, he's John Wayne, in his mind, and he's a determined guy from old school that gets the job done like the old-timers used to, and it's just a throwback kind of to that kind of man, someone who, goes out and gets it done, and characters like that, that have such strong will are very fun and very attractive to play, I mean, he had a sense of humor, but it was just like only a couple people, he gave it to, but the rest of the planet was like, get the hell out of my way, boy, but it's fun.
Right, and that was certainly a better way to put it. It is over the top, but
the old guys were larger than life. You look at your Lee Marvins and Robert Shaws, and you look at guys that were just those kind of guys. We can go down a list of fellas like that, and which is what I love in film with those kind of guys. And so it's fun to play people that are those guys, that are leaders, that are big time.
And when you play a character like that sometimes go to extremes, do you kind of look for a way to sort of connect with them? Your performances, they're always very three-dimensional. I mean, they're people. They may do some violent things. They may go to extremes, but you believe them as actual living, breathing people. And what do you do to kind of get into their heads to make that connection?
Preparation is everything. How to prepare a character so that it's an internal and an external thing. To find a way to live a real life when you're that guy, and the more work you do to be specific and to get that job done, the richer and the more lifelike a character is. And it's funny you're talking about he resorts to violence. I'm like, in The Devil's Rejects, we're talking about people who are serial killer, mass murderers.
By comparison, yeah.
Free bird. Oh my God. I'm like, believe me, in my movie they'd be hanging on a hook.
By comparison, Sheriff Wydell is a Boy Scout compared to what the Firefly clan go to. And one of my favorite movies ever, and one of my favorite performances ever, is your character in Raising Arizona. And your working relationship, your comic chemistry with John Goodman is outstanding. The Coen brothers have kind of a reputation of being very precise about dialogue and acting beats and such as that. Was that the case in Raising Arizona?
Absolutely. In fact, the funny part of that was, I was kind of from a whole different school of acting. Now, I've always loved comedy, and I've done some, up to that point. But I was school of loose and free, and it was funny when we first met there, and they said, "All right, turn to the right, turn to the left." There were just a certain kind of timing things, and it took a few days to adapt. But I have to admit, I don't know how they felt about that. I don't really at this point care. But it's like I loved working with those guys. They were unique. I mean, it was as if both of them would have the same thought at once and would both turn and say it. They were really unique and talented guys, and I could recognize they were going to have a very big future. And the time that we had making that film, it was just outstanding. Goodman was amazing to work with. We somehow worked out that, thing, where we were brothers, and it was instantly chemical, and it really worked. So I'm very proud of that movie.
A modern classic, Raising Arizona. It kind of broke new grounds in comedy in the way that movie is shot, and you can see that repeated. You know, of course, what they'll always do is repeat that kind of style. Anything that's popular, anything that's new and innovative, is going to get rehashed ad nauseum. But nothing compares. Nothing compares. Well, I know I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but just one more thing. You also played Al Capone in The Untouchables. After The Untouchables movie came out, there was a series that played for some time, and I never missed an episode. And please, whoever's responsible, get that out on DVD. I don't know why in the world.
I couldn't agree more. I don't even know how or why that has never come out on DVD. I mean, it was really interesting. When we were making The Untouchables, we were doing some cutting-edge things, but of course we weren't on, like the cable channels like HBO, Showtime, or whatever. So for us it was risque, and if anything, they hit the show a little bit. But it was a good show. I certainly did my work. I got to know Al Capone. By the time it was over, I met over 100 people that knew Al. And I really got in there. I hung out with Anthony Berardi, who was the guy who shot the Valentine's Day Massacre photos, who also knew Al very well as a photographer and also as a boxer. I got to meet people that, a lady in particular that lived, in Al's house at a time. Was married to Al's brother, and just got to know intimately, who he was. And so, Al Capone, I'd always seen him always played as crazy. And I discovered he was the opposite of crazy. I mean, sure he was, who he was and what he did. But he was, he had a certain way of carrying himself that all the people that I met who knew him, it fascinated me because they all liked him. And they were all from different walks of life, both sides of the law and everything, So he's a fascinating guy. And anyway, I'd love to see it come out on DVD.
Yes, please. The powers that be, whoever owned the rights, I think you said Paramount. Please, Paramount, put out The Untouchables with his version of Al Capone. It's a terrific series. And before we go, any new projects you have coming out? New convention appearances?
I just did a 3 months in hell. I just researched and played John Wayne Gacy in a movie called Dear Mr. Gacy. And that was a very, it's a difficult, hard ride, and I'm glad that part of it's over. But I'm hoping and praying it comes out and it's a really good film, So.
And unless the IMDb is wrong, and they sometimes can be, you'll be playing Jake LaMotta in a future project?
I've been offered that part, and we're working out something now, and they're talking about shooting it early next year. And I met Jake, and God, I love Jake. I've always loved him, and it was great to meet him, and it's looking like it's really going to happen. So I like to never think of anything till it does, but it seems like it is.
And where can fans that didn't make it to Texas Frightmare Weekend, where can they see you at a future convention?
I don't know. I don't have any other ones planned right now. I probably will, do some in the future, but I don't have any planned right at the moment. So.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time with us, Mr. Forsythe. Mr. William Forsythe, Texas Frightmare Weekend 2009. It's been a great show and continues to be. Thank you, sir.